All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Maya. I'm from the Disability Foundation and Connector Society, and I will be hosting today's installment of our ongoing perspective series. Thank you for coming today. I'm joined by 5 awesome panelists from a range of careers in the film and theater industries who have kindly taken the time to answer a lot of your questions regarding film and theater and how to get involved in them. Before we begin and go over some general housekeeping rules, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land on which this event is taking place. The Disability Foundation and its respective societies operate on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people, and in particular, the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. This acknowledgement is a statement to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their history. All right, thank you again for joining us today. For some general housekeeping rules, if you require closed captioning, please make sure to enable them in Zoom by going to the bottom bar on your screen, clicking the More button, and then just clicking the Captions button as well. And we have our auto captioning bot that will provide more accurate captions for your needs. Alongside this Zoom presentation, this panel will also be live streamed to the Disability Foundation's Facebook and YouTube. So please feel free to leave your camera off. You can watch the recording of this panel and all of our previous perspective series on our YouTube channel at any time. And we're excited to have an open dialogue here today to answer your questions as needed. So you are free to ask questions in the chat whenever, and I'll just read them out for you when I see them. And you are also welcome to raise your hand on Zoom using the raise hand function, also located in the reactions button at the bottom of your screen, if you'd like to ask the question verbally. All right, now I'm going to briefly introduce our panelists. One of our first panelists is Amy. Amy is a theater actress performing with Real Wheel Theater in Vancouver, and she is also the Associate Director of Vocal Eye and the Accessibility Coordinator for the Arts Club. Next, we have Susanna. Susanna is the Artistic Director of Theater Terrific, located in Vancouver, and she has produced dozens of productions with the theater. Next, we have Lora. Lora is a filmmaker, educator, and advocate, and the Artistic Director of the Real Abilities Film Festival, located in Toronto. Next, we have Riki. Riki is a facilitator with Inside Out's theater community programs located in Calgary, and he is a relaxed performance consultant for the Good Host program. Next, we have Winnie. Winnie is a disability advocate, a 2S LGBTQI+ activist and film industry leader, currently working for the new Canadian nonprofit Disability Screen Office. And now I'm going to pass it along to each individual panelist to kind of talk more about how they started in the film and theater industries and to talk a bit more about some current projects they are working on. So Susanna, would you like to go first?
Turn my voice on. Okay, sorry. Okay, hi there. Yeah, I am primarily, for the last 20 years, a collaborative theater creator. I'm also, just to let you know, have been in film and TV. I am a member of both ACTRA and UBCP. But for the last 20 years, I've been a collaborative theater creator, created, gosh, I think it's about over 35 professional and community productions, all inclusive, very diverse, and also very, very collaborative in form. I've also supported artists entering into the film, being asked to supply artists in different locations for film. So yeah, I guess that's about it. Don't want to take up too much time. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Lora, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Lora Campbell. I am a trans non-binary artist. Today, I am wearing a pink dress, not that you could tell because you can only see the top half. That's like a little turtleneck 1970s mod moment. I have brown eyes, brown hair, and like a little pixie cut. And I'm wearing a pinkish lipstick to match the neon pink dress because that's how I roll. My access needs currently are that my cat would like to be a part of this seminar. And I will try to stop him from joining. I'm the artistic director of the Real Abilities Film Festival, which is a festival that is dedicated to showcasing and supporting creatives from the disabled and deaf community through showcasing their films, while also having various mentorships and support programs throughout the year. When I'm not doing that, I am a writer, director, producer of film and television. I'm originally from the unceded territory of Uktuhamkuk, which was colonized as Newfoundland, Canada, which is home to the Mi'kmaq, the Beothuk, the Innu, and the Inuit people. And I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Winnie, would you like to go next?
Hi there, thank you for having me. My name is Winnie Look. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a Chinese woman with short black hair and I'm wearing a black collar shirt with some floral print. My screen background has a framed picture of a Ferris wheel, green plants, a bookshelf with books organized in rainbow colors, and a wood slatted wall. I am the inaugural executive director of the Disability Screen Office, and the Disability Screen Office is a national disability-led not-for-profit organization that works with the Canadian screen industry and disability community to eliminate accessibility barriers and foster authentic and meaningful disability representation throughout the sector. Previously, I was the director of operations and events at Inside Out, the presenter of the Toronto and Ottawa 2S LGBTQI+ Film Festival, and I was there for 16 years. I also did some consulting a little bit and went back and consulted with Inside Out last 2022 festival and led their accessibility programming. And later on in the workshop, I'll delve a bit more into what the Disability Screen Office's services and programs are. Oh, you're muted, Maya.
Sorry. Awesome, great. Thank you, Winnie. Riki, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Riki. I am a trans, non-binary, disabled, neurodivergent, multiply disabled artist. I am white, wearing a black t-shirt in my bedroom. I like to take meetings in my bed as an access need, and have a wall of stuffed animals behind me. They're in different colors. I first got involved in advocacy for disability, not directly involved in theater and film, because at my university, disabled people were not encouraged to take classes, as in it said directly in the syllabus, disabled people are encouraged not to take this class. That is illegal. It happened anyways. They have since changed their tune. I will not name the university, but if you have questions, I will name the university. I then helped to start an advocacy organization for autistic people, by autistic people, and a play that, in my opinion, is not good for autistic people came to town, and I wanted to protest it. And my friend said, how about instead of protesting it, we collaborate with the theater? And I said some negative things, and then we did it their way, and I'm very grateful. And I then moved from Winnipeg to Calgary and met the director of Inside Out Theatre, and they were looking to do a relaxed performance, but I'd never met anyone who had done a relaxed performance. But because of our collaboration with that play, I had, and long story short, I became a consultant with theater accessibility. And through that networking, I was able to work my way into getting involved as a performer again. So I did it in a different way than a lot of people did, because disability was quite the barrier for me due to my not being able to go to theater school and other things. So that's how I sort of became involved, and how I am involved in a lot of different ways in theater and stuff now. End of thought.
Awesome. Thank you, Riki. Finally, Amy, would you like to go next?
Thank you. So this is Amy speaking. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a white settler person. I live with legal blindness. I'm neurodivergent, and I live with chronic pain and chronic illness. So my intersections with disability are many. I've been involved in work around accessibility for the last 16, 17 years. At the time I acquired my disability. So I jumped into the minute I had my sight loss, I sort of jumped into reinventing who I was. I was an actor and performer before sight loss, and sort of went through that thing that maybe many people do when they acquire disability, which is what do I do now, right? And I really I found myself in a place where I thought nobody would want a blind actor. You know, how would I read a script? How would I find marks on a stage or a set? How do I make eye contact? All of those things were questions that I had in my mind. And when I found Real Wheels Theater here in Vancouver, there were other people with disabilities performing on a stage, and I went, whoa, why am I not doing this? There is a place for community. And so that really changed how I thought about the art form in terms of disability representation. So I'm actively involved with Real Wheels Theater. I'm actively involved with the Arts Club, which I work for, with Vocal Eye, who does live description for live theater productions. In fact, we just did a mural tour yesterday. So we did a live described tour of the murals in part of Vancouver. And I'm also an actor and performer myself, and I'm going to be touring some of my own work. I just started that in Kingston this June, and we're going to be touring some of the work across Canada in the upcoming years. So I'm really excited about that. And with that, I will say that's the end of my thought, because I could take up your whole hour, and I won't. So end of my thought.
All right, thank you. This is Maya speaking. Thank you, Amy, for that introduction. I guess we'll go right into questions. Just as a reminder, you guys are free to ask questions at any time, either in the chat or by raising your hand. Thank you so much for joining us. The first question I have for you guys, and anyone is free to answer this as you please. I think everyone kind of identifies the US as the hub of media production, with things like Hollywood and Broadway, of course. Have you found a lot of opportunities in film and theater in Canada, and how does it kind of look like navigating, finding these opportunities? So Amy, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things here. One is that, you know, I have a lot of friends in the disability community who have agents here locally. I find that many of those agents will only send somebody with a disability out for roles that are written for disability. I think we need to raise the bar on that. I think that, you know, somebody who uses a wheelchair can be your Starbucks barista. Somebody who has a white cane can be in, you know, the father of the bride in your movie. So I don't want us to have to wait for the right role. Obviously, I want roles that are written for disability to go to performers and actors who identify with disability. But I think for me, equity looks like we go for all of the roles. And so even getting an agent still feels a bit, to me, it still feels like there's a bit of a stigmatization there, where it's like, oh, you have a disability, we'll only send you for those roles. So I think from that perspective, opportunity feels kind of a little more limited than I would like it to be. I would like us to think bigger. And I think the same works for theater roles, which is, you know, just because I'm blind doesn't mean I have to wait for a blind character to be cast on a stage. I can play any character. And how we look at representation. So if roughly 25% of the population identifies with disability, we have, and Winnie may have better statistics on this, but I was always sort of taught that in theater and film and television, we have about 4% representation of disability. And of that, if you're lucky, maybe half of that is authentic representation. So the numbers go down and down and down. And so a lot of what I've been focusing on really is that representation piece. And it starts with part of what Riki was saying, which is like, are our theater educational environments welcoming and accessible for folks that live with disability? So even with Real Wheels, we have a Real Wheels Acting Academy, which endeavors to try and meet everybody at their access need. It's not a perfect entity, of course. It's just going to be starting its new year, second year this fall. And we've learned a lot by having different folks with different disabilities. But if you're interested in performing arts, that might be something that people are interested in looking into, because it is an acting academy taught by the top professionals in Vancouver here in their fields, voice, movement, acting, to help support and to be in a place where your access needs are met, or as met as they can possibly be. As we all know, when we have multiple people in a room with different access needs, sometimes there's negotiations that have to happen. And so we invite that into space. I could go on. End of thought, Maya. Thank you. Mia, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Susanna, would you like to add to that?
Thank you so much, Amy. Yeah, I would like to add, just to say, the way that Theatrific works is the idea of bringing people together to collaboratively create who would never normally have the the opportunity to do so. So let's say in a cast that we may have for any professional production, or in our classes, or in a community production, you will have someone. I'm just thinking of one production we had. He was on Broadway. He performed with Katharine Hepburn way back when, and he's working with someone here who is cognitively challenged. The whole point of the way that we work is, how do you be with? And I say that in a really, in an open-minded way. How do you be with? How do you listen to each other's stories? I tell everyone that comes into the space, and the artists that work with us are also highly professional and have worked with a really broad range of people. How do you share with respect? How do you create with rigor? And how do you take the risks that are part of making art? So, it's really not, I always think that disability, and I say this, part of the reason that I've been doing for years what I do is I have an incredible daughter who has been, I'm going to say, one of my major teachers. She lives with brain damage and is an amazing artist. Just the idea that you think of everyone that comes into the space to work, they are first and foremost a fully respected human being. And it's not necessarily their disability, but them as a human being, and that we look at that first. So, what are our needs? How do we express first as a human being? And so I just wanted to share that with you. Can I read something really quick? I don't want to take about two. I want to read, and I usually give this for classes that I've done for all throughout the Lower Mainland and internationally. It's from Richard Wagames. I don't know if some of you know him. He's an Ashkenazi Ojibwe, originally from Ontario, did not know his heritage till he was in his 20s. I just want to read this to you because I found it to be one of the most profound things for doing what we do in any sort of performance arts. And it's this, quote, "All we are is story. From the moment we are born to the time we continue on our spirit journey, we are involved in the creation of the story of our time here. It is what we arrive with. It is all we leave behind. We are not the things we deem important. We are story, all of us. What comes to matter then is the creation of the best possible story we can while we're here, you, me, us, together. When we can do that and we take the time to share those stories with each other, we get bigger inside. We see each other. We recognize our kinship, and we change the world one story at a time." To me, that's one of the most, done a lot of reading, and you get things that hit you. I keep this above my desk at work and at home to remind me why we do what we do. So thank you for letting me share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a really cool quote. Thank you, Susanna. We have a quick question from Vicky in the chat for Susanna about Theatre Terrific. So does Theatre Terrific offer classes or workshops on evenings or weekends?
Yes, it does. You can go to our website right now. Again, the next session of classes will begin in October. We're offering choral, dance, singing. We also have Indigenous artists. We'll be making one class. You will be making your own drum and then learning how to play it. So yes, you can look on our website, and there's a number of classes coming up. We're right now just working on our Harvest, our Fringe Festival production, which will start in September, again, with a really incredible, diverse cast. Thank you for asking.
Right, thank you. Yes, so I also linked Theatre Terrific's website in the chat, so anyone can go and click on that if they're interested. And Riki has their hand up, but could you please share, Riki, as well?
Yeah, hi, Riki speaking. I think there's a couple different barriers to getting involved in theater, and intersectionality is a big one. I think that there are more opportunities if you fit into a box, if you are a certain kind of disabled, if you are only disabled. If you, I was in a production this fall, and what was really exciting about it was that the two disabled characters were not just disabled, we were disabled, and the lead was disabled and Indigenous. I was disabled and trans, and I was able to bring my transness to my character thanks to the playwright asking for diversity in casting and specifically specifying gender diversity and saying that you could change pronouns. So we were able to bring that to my character. And I think we need to talk about intersectionality, especially. I auditioned for a feature film and there was 2 slots, one for a non-binary character and one for a wheelchair user. I am both of those things. At no point was there a spot for a wheelchair using non-binary character. For friends of mine that are trans and disabled and people of color, it becomes additionally thing because people are looking for a certain kind of disability, a certain kind of transness. And I think we're getting to see these things on stage and in film, but we're not seeing ones that include everybody. So I think there are opportunities even in this country, but they're still not including everyone. And one part of disability that we're not seeing is cognitive disability. And I want to separate that from developmental disability for a second, because I'm autistic and I have a cognitive disability. I received too many concussions, and that has changed the way that my brain functions. And when you have a cognitive disability, you often are at the whim of others because you don't sign up for a class that then brings you opportunities the same way that non-cognitively disabled people get to do things. Often you are a part of a group that decides what you are doing for you, that often even your revenue goes back to that building. And that's not the way everybody does it, but you don't have agency. The amount of lack of agency you have is so frustrating, and it is the bane of my existence. And it is so hard to explain to people why someone like myself, who seems talented, who seems like they have all these things like agency, which I have a lot of. I don't have a guardian. I don't have a lot of care. I don't have a lot of things. But I don't have the ability to navigate systems the way a lot of other people do without my challenges. And so things like doing an audition, things like finding an audition, things like finding what's going on, things like not getting trapped in a manipulative agency, that's very difficult for me. So finding the opportunities are very hard for this group of people that's already so misrepresented and incredibly detrimentally misrepresented. And I'll go back to autism. Autism frustrates me so much because I want to be a disabled person. I don't want to be solely an autistic person. So often I'm forced into this box where I'm constantly advocating as an autistic person because of how misrepresented autism is by the media, by everything. And we owe this group of people better. And so I think that there are opportunities, but it depends on who you are. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Riki. That was really awesome. Just to reiterate, Riki kind of talked about how increasing media representation of people with disabilities comes with the topic of intersectionality. So we need to look at intersectionality and not just creating roles for people with set disability, set identity, but allowing them into roles that are created for any type of person who wants to audition for them. Like, we shouldn't be putting people with disabilities in a box based on their disability. We also have a question from Vicky, who has their hand up. So if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask the question, Vicky.
Hi, thanks so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to ask some questions today. I was in the theater with Theatrific years ago. I'm dating myself here, but probably close to 30 years ago, when Sue Lister was running as a director, fantastic director. Also worked with Jamie Norris, who was previously with Green Thumb Theater. So I've done some stuff, but now I'm getting back into the industry. I'm actually on a commercial right now for Van City Credit Union. And I've taken a little bit of refresher on the mic training to do some voiceover work, which is a great avenue for being able to get some work that isn't based on your disability so much. It's not about looks, it's about how well you can use your voice to act, which is fantastic. But I recently went to an open casting call and managed to get an agent. I had one before, it was recruited last year, just out in public based on my looks, but didn't really get any work. Now is a really bad time for anyone getting work, by the way, just because of the writer's strike. So very difficult. But I guess what I'm looking for, because I'm getting back into it, is I want to have a way to essentially get a video reel, because you need that. I need some help with doing my resume, getting back in there and getting some stuff going again to sort of be relevant. And that's what I'm looking for, some guidance and some assistance with that. And I'm hoping that maybe somewhere within this group, I would be able to do that, whether that's doing some, theater or just getting that going again for someone who's a little dusty.
Yeah, Laura has their hand up. So if you'd like to answer that question, Laura.
I would love to. Hey, Laura speaking. Thank you so much for sharing that, Vicki. This year at the festival, a mentorship program that we created was exactly for this reason. There are a lot of folks in our community who don't have reels, who don't know how to make a resume, who just don't have access in the same ways that other people do. And so what we did is we took a really wonderful casting director from Toronto, Jessie Griffiths, and then also paired Jessie with an industry member who's also an actor, Alexa Vassos, who's been in a ton of TV. And so what we always do with our mentorship programs is we choose someone from community who actually knows how hard it is, who's lived that experience, and who's like out there in these streets, as I would like to say. And then actually an industry professional who's a casting director who can really give you that kind of feedback. And it's a national program that we run, and we'll be running it next year as well. But anybody who's kind of interested in that kind of mentorship, I would be very interested in running it multiple times a year. And that's something that we're discussing at our festival right now, because this is one of the many, many spaces that we're really recognizing as like, what's the practical knowledge sharing? It's all well and good to sit around and talk about things, but how are we actually taking people from industry, pairing them with people from community, thusly making sure that conversations that are kind of harder to have, maybe with able-bodied people and different confidences, can be kept. So that way you're working with someone from community, somebody who's in the industry. So please take a look. Thank you so much for putting that in the chat. Take a look at that mentorship program and send us an email. And yeah, I would certainly love to talk to you about it more.
All right. Thank you so much, Laura. I would like to talk a bit more about the Real Abilities Film Festival, because you've already talked a bit about the mentorship program. Could you talk a bit about what the festival kind of looks like and when it occurs, kind of like the film submission process, just all the things like that?
I sure can. We're in a huge development stage right now. So I was the artistic director for last year and next year. So, last year was what we call the learning year, where you say, what is this? And so with a little more of that under my belt now, our focus going forward is these kinds of practical programs. So last year we had 2 mentorship programs, one for actors, as I just described. And last year we took 3 people from across Canada, and it's individualized completely. So people apply and they say, here's what I need. Here's the exact thing that I need to work on. And then we make sure to match skill set of mentor with needs of individual. Because there's nothing worse than going into a mentorship or a lab and either you know it already or it's not what you're looking for. So we want to make sure it's really specific. We did the same thing with a writing lab this year. So Anthony Farrell, who has the television show Shelved, who worked on The Office, is a very successful film and television writer. Paired up with Ophira Kaloff, who ran our Accessible Writers Lab the year before that, and is a very well-known disabled writer in community here in Canada and in the States. So what we did is we paired them up with 3 writers who applied through our open submissions. Whether it's a TV show, a pilot, just question like, how do you get an agent? We just really wanted to make sure that the mentorship is tailor-made because we're all different and we all have different needs and we all have different accessibility needs on top of that. So those are the two programs that we had this past year. I hope to open it up to larger things, but I don't want to commit to that in case we don't and everyone's too disappointed. But I would love to be growing into directing, producing, all kinds of other spaces. But as we all know with not-for-profits, we'll see how much money we raise throughout the year. Submissions open for the film festival in December. Our festival is in May, and it is completely online, as well as some in-person events in Toronto. I'm hoping to be able to do a completely online and in person, as in everything that happens in person will be screened in some way, shape, or form, because it's always, I think it's kind of disappointing to not at least live stream the party. You know, I think there's a way to feel included there, even if you can't attend. And then the other thing that we had this year was the inaugural short film pitch competition, which was Ontario-based this year. We're going to see about making it national over time. But I approached a camera house, William F. White for grip and electric gear, an insurance provider, and just all kinds of different people across Ontario, and got a financial donation of $5,000. And we selected 5 people to go through a month-long pitch training course. And then they did a live pitch online, and the winner received all of the resources to make their short film, as well as mentorship along the way. And they actually went to camera this weekend. They're making the movie. It might be in the can, because we really believe in practical application, practical. There's a lot of theory when it comes to theater and film. And I think that if you're not able to make the real and to do the real kind of work, that's not it. So that's my focus for the next year, is to continue to grow our audience base. A lot of people don't know a lot about real abilities yet. And so that's a huge focus of mine, is kind of profile. But I think the way we raise that profile is by engaging more individuals in our programs. Thanks.
Great, awesome, thank you. Once again, the links to the Real Abilities website and the mentorship program are linked in the chat, so feel free to check those out. We have a hand up from Monica. So Monica, would you like to ask your question? Oh, it's down. I don't know.
I'm
Oh,
here.
thanks.
So I just wanted to say that I'm also a working actor in Vancouver, and haven't had anything for a while because of the pandemic. But I did audition for a position that was originally not designated for a person with a disability. As a matter of fact, it was for a person that was tall and had big breasts and tattoos. And then I came in and auditioned, and I'm 3 feet tall in an electric wheelchair, and I don't have big boobs. And the director liked me so much that they rewrote that part for me. And it was aired. It was a delay in airing because of the pandemic. And of course, as an actor, and if you're on film or television, you cannot say anything about the character who you're playing or what's going on until it airs. And then you're allowed to say things if you want. And it was called The Now. Daryl Hannah was in that, as well as a few other. I performed with Elisa Milano and what's his other name? David Franco. So they're both very well-known actors, and the writer-director was one of the Farley brothers. So he won an Oscar for The Green Book. So there I am performing with an Oscar winner director, and I was of course shocked. It's always a good idea to know who's directing you, and I wasn't sure by the names. So I looked up his movies and then watched a movie, a couple of them, so that I knew what kind of style he films in, because that's very important. Anyway, make a long story short, once it was done, once it was aired, I was able to take the clip of the movie and use that in a demo reel. Because if you really want work, you need to do a demo reel. I recently applied for an indie, that's an independent film, and I haven't heard back yet because it was just posted on Actors Access, and that's where you can look up television movie things, and sometimes they have gender specific, sometimes they want diverse types of genders. and Black, white, Asian, or all ethnicities. They'll describe that on the breakdown. Anyway, and so I also have a resume, and we don't hand out 8x10 photo shoots anymore, but you have your photo shoot, you need an 8x10, and you need to send that out and have that on your on the Actors Access if you want to apply for different television or movies. I also did recently, in the spring, I found an agent. Actually, he came looking for me. He saw me and looked me up. He says he doesn't accept people usually coming to him. He likes to find them on his own. And he saw my demo reel. He loved it. We had a lovely chat. Unfortunately, I've been ill this entire summer. I just was released from the hospital a couple of weeks ago, but I'm hoping to, of course, get back in it and everything, and we'll see how things go. But one other important thing I just needed to say, which is when you started the acting program, I think I'm not sure if it was, Theater Terrific started it, and they had the acting classes in the late afternoon. And there's, there are those of us that are working full-time or close to full-time, and there's no way that we can do an acting class at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Most actors in the city of Vancouver have a day job, and they go to acting classes at night. And that's just the way it operates in Vancouver. During the pandemic, I took 2 years of online acting classes to keep me occupied. So if you're going to have it in the middle of the afternoon, people like myself are not going to be able to join you because normally I'm working. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue working based on my medical condition at the moment, but the goal is that I get back to my health prior to my recent issue. But anyway, I just thought I'd add some insight to that. And I think the movie industry is much more open than it was 5 years ago. We just have to show them our talent. And they're a little nervous about it, but they'll get over it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Monica. That was a great addition to what we've been talking about. It's great to hear about your experiences in the industry. Amy has their hand up. So would you like to add on to that, Amy?
Yeah, thanks, Monica. I'm seeing you on Facebook. I'm glad to see that you're back home. Just a correction, it's Real Wheels Theater that has the Acting Academy, not Theater Terrific, just for some clarity. And you're absolutely right about the timing. The initial feedback for the Academy, this was all directed by the disability community. And at that time, the folks who were in that focus group said, we want acting classes at 3 p.m. And so that was the access need for that group. And that is why those times exist. And I would say that that's a conversation that if somebody wants to enroll in the upcoming cohort of the Real Wheels Acting Academy, that you have a conversation with Real Wheels about that, because those things can be potentially flexible. As you may know, those things are often dependent on space and availability of space, and availability of space in an accessible venue. Those are all sort of intersecting things that have to be considered. But I think that's how we as an organization respond to the community when the community says, I really like what you're doing, but the time doesn't align. Well, let's have a conversation with that and see where things go. So thank you for that feedback. But I just felt like it was important to respond to the fact that it was the disability community who chose that time spot for the first cohort. So that's sort of how that developed. Yeah. So that also means that for upcoming cohorts, you can provide your feedback about that as well. That's the end of my thought. Thanks. And welcome back home, Monica. I hope you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Also, Susanna put in the chat that all the Theater Terrific classes are also in the evening, so feel free to look into those as well. As we're continuing the conversation kind of about services and programs available for people with disabilities looking to get into the film and theater industries, I would love to turn it over to Winnie to kind of talk about a bit more about the Disability Screen Office and what kind of services and programs you're going to be providing.
Amazing. Thank you. This is Winnie speaking. So the DSO is a relatively new organization. It incubated from Accessible Media Inc. And it did have a year, it's been in a year, but within that year, setting up really some of the operations. And there was an interim executive director. And I'm actually the brand new inaugural permanent executive director. And I only started in June, so very, very new. And the Display Screen Office became independent September of 2022 from the AMI. And so right now, my priorities is really building up the operations, getting sustainable funding for our programming to work on our mission and mandate, which is advocating for accessibility rights and disability representation behind and on screen across all of the screen sector in Canada. And so right now, sustainable funding, absolutely one of our priorities. I don't want to be here just for 6 months to a year, even 3 years. I want the Display Screen Office to be able to exist for a very long time. And to be perfectly honest, when I saw the role posted, I could not believe that the Disability Screen Office did not exist 20 years ago. It actually was mind-blowing to me that it did not exist. And in short, answering the previous question about opportunities, I'm sorry, but absolutely there are not enough opportunities for the screen sector, for the disability community right now. There isn't. That's why we need to exist. It was, we heard the community that this needed to exist. Other screen offices have been developing in the last several years. And people don't, and the resources that are out there, first of all, it's so important to credit and spotlight some of the organizations that have been doing this good work. And that is definitely one of my priorities in collaborating and partner with folks that have been doing this, but it's hard to find, right? So one of our priorities and one of the initiatives we do want to launch is a resource hub. So it's a one-stop shop where they can find festivals like Real Abilities, right? Find other organizations, find other like disabled creatives, talent, assistive services and vendors, accessible venues to hold auditions for talent, et cetera, et cetera. So essentially everything under one place that is also trusted and vetted. So we will be making sure that the folks that we collaborate with, that we partner, that we list are also trusted sources. Another thing Amy had asked about statistics. Data, there's so little out there. And one of the reasons being that there's so little data out there is also not only because the data haven't been collected, but the data is, it's not accurate. People do not divulge. People do not feel comfortable right now talking about disability, divulging their disability. Anecdotally, for my role, so the executive director of the Disability Screen Office, I know for a fact that people who are interviewing for this role did not feel comfortable divulging their disability within the interview. So you can imagine the fear, the stigma, how deep down that is. And we want to bust that open. We want to give people the tools, the language, the access to talk about it freely and feel incredibly confident, secure, and safe to divulge their disability, because not all disability are visible. I myself have encountered and dealt with mobility issues my whole life, but for mostly my disabilities are invisible. And so the DSO, I've worked in human rights, I've worked within the film sector, I've worked with the city. When I saw the role advertised, it all culminated what I've been doing my whole career and how much it does personally touch me. And so in regards to going back to our services, because we're so new, it's not even about necessarily services, but it's creating and developing resources for the sector. So another important initiative that we have is a research project. So collecting that data, serving the disability community, the film sector, and consulting folks, and it will all culminate into a protocols and guidelines for the sector and how to work with the disabled community. And this is such a crucial, important project because it will then trigger funding for others. It will trigger so many other initiatives, because without data and without metrics and without knowing what the landscape in the screen sector is right now, it is really hard to do all the other work. Something else that is a priority for us is formalizing a particular role within the sector that can have influence through the full life cycle of creating a project. So originally we were thinking about more of a production accessibility coordinator, but very quickly we realized that role might not have the influence at the very beginning. And we want to make sure that folks are consulted and I should say not just consult, but hired, right? Because we also want to advocate for hiring people with disabilities, not consulting. But in every stage of the project, understanding and producing your work through the lens of accessibility and disability. Accessibility is law, it's a human right. Disability representation on and off screen is incredibly important. And for it to have authentic representation, authentic work and meaningful work, you have to work with people from the disability community to achieve that. And so this particular role, we want to formalize the training of it, work with the labor organizations to formalize it. And recently I was in a meeting where they presented, Telefilm and CMF presented their new budget templates that have the accessibility line. So they have a new accessibility line in their budget templates, which is an amazing first step, but also there are only so many people qualified to do that work in the sector. So right now we really want to make sure that we are training up folks to do this work, because we know that producers can get impatient. If they cannot find the people to help, they are going to reallocate their budget, and we do not want to do that. And so it's very important us to also really pace out methodically how we introduce our programs and not overpromise, and making sure that we consider, not putting the cart before the horse. So again, formalizing and training up folks. And I already spoke a little bit about partnerships and collaborations and how important that is for us. And so that is obviously another priority of the DSO.
All right, thank you so much. Like I said previously, I also linked the Disability Screen Office's website in the chat. So definitely check them out and monitor their upcoming projects and initiatives. Really awesome.
Just a quick comment, because it's really at the landing page right now. Sign up for it. We're so new. It is just laying on landing page. We don't have even social media platforms right now. So join our e-newsletter, kind of come with us on our journey as we build all our operations and services and programs. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Riki has their hand up if they want to add something to what Winnie is saying.
Hi, excuse me, it's Allison here. I've been having my hand up before Riki. Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, it's Allison. I know Susanna and Amy as well. I actually, as I was hearing you, Winnie, I wrote my master's on having scholars talk about their disabilities for their students. My question here is that I know there are people like Real Wheels and Theater Terrific that do writing, or writers. But I was wondering if Real Wheels, Theater Terrific, the DSO, Inside Out Theater, any of the groups do more than just writers or actors. It'd be those who set up lights, who do sound, and I know Amy well enough. She also has a podcast and a radio show on Co-op Radio like me. I have a podcast and radio show on Co-op Radio, and like those who are promoting these programs on their media platforms like radio, television, newspaper, to come and perceive the performances. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Riki and Amy talked a bit about writers' workshops in the chat. So would either of you like to touch on those a bit more?
Sure, this is Amy speaking. Both of the organizations that I work with, the Arts Club and Real Wheels Theater, have professional playwriting programs. Real Wheels Theater calls it the Playwriting Circle, and it is created for folks with disabilities. It's all done online, so you can join from anywhere in the country, and you work for a series through workshops to develop and get dramaturgical feedback from a professional playwright. And then once your play is developed, and it can be a short 10-minute play, right? We're not talking, it doesn't have to be a 2-hour feature length anything. We do a live reading with professional actors. And the Arts Club also offers this. It's called the LEAP program. LEAP. It's not specifically dedicated towards folks with disabilities, but it is an inclusive space and is working hard to be more and more inclusive. It is led by also somebody who lives with a disability that's a local theater creator in the city. So those are two avenues that I would check out. And the LEAP program in particular offers 3 different levels of playwriting. So there's a you have to look up through all the details. Won't share them all here, but there are 3 different levels. So potentially you could start at level 1 and grow to level 2 and then grow to level 3, right? So it's level 3, for example, might take 2 participants, whereas level 1 might take 10 participants. But as you grow to level 3, you're building a longer, more dedicated piece of work. So you have more one-on-one with the dramaturges to get that kind of support. And I think, just Allison, to your point about training other people in film and television and also in theater, who are the folks that make the magic happen, who aren't the actors, right? Like there's a whole bunch of folks that make this work happen, whether you're a stage manager or a camera operator or a grip or a PA or whatever your role is. I think those are also areas where we need to, as a community, and I'm hoping that both Real Abilities, that the Disability Screen Office and the Real Abilities Film Festival can help with some of those behind the scenes workshops. Because I think that's really important. Representation is not just about what happens on the stage or on the set, right? It's about what happens in the writer's room. It's about what happens with the people who are creating the work, the editors, the sound editors, the dialogue editors, your stage managers, all of those people. And so in my work in film, I started in the film industry before I had a disability, and I got to work with all of these. I was part of a post-production sound house, so I was playing in the Foley room, and I was doing all of this work. And we didn't have anybody with a disability in our production house. And I'm currently working on a film as their disability consultant, because I would say that their authentic casting didn't quite pan out the way they wanted to. So they needed a consultant to be able to have some authentic portrayal. That's the word I use, because I don't like the word portrayal in general. I don't think disability needs to be portrayed. I think when you have lived experience, like we don't portray people of color, right? Like we might portray a doctor or a nurse or a cop, those are professions, but we don't portray lived experiences, except when you hire folks that don't have the authentic lived experience, and then you have to have somebody to help consult on portrayal. And while I feel a little icky about the work that I'm doing, I also, on that particular show, because the casting hasn't been completely authentic to the extent that I would consider these roles needed. It's a build. I'm hoping this is a build. So both of these actors in these roles identify with I can't say too much, identify as perhaps living with disability, and in the roles that they are cast in. At any rate, I think that the point that I'm trying to get to is that there is a community of people that build any work. And the representation doesn't just happen on the stages and on the sets. It happens in our writing. It happens in the people that are involved in doing the work. And we need to do better as a community to provide those working experiences, because it's not so easy to just show up at the Vancouver Film School or at any of the theater companies here in Vancouver with a disability and say, hi, I want to be a stage manager, but I'm blind. How do I do that? Right? No, like nobody sort of as if I walked in and wanted to be a camera operator with low vision, I'm sure that they would look at me with the most crooked intention and say, well, that's not possible. Don't even bother. Where I think that there is a possibility of being a part of this team, and we just need to be creative about how that works. I don't think we're there yet as an industry, but I'm hoping it's a build to that. And I'm hoping in my lifetime we see that, because I look at accessibility as a continuum, right? There's no finish line in this work. So we don't rush to the end of a finish line and go, woohoo, I'm accessible, woohoo, we reach representation. In my mind, it doesn't work that way. This is work that we do as a lifetime. So if we continue to build in a forward momentum, a meaningful forward momentum, that's really where I'm at right now, because otherwise people get left behind. We skip things. So that's sort of my philosophy. And I think that your point is really valid, Allison, about the other careers within film and theater. End of my thought.
Right. Thank you, Amy. We have a question or a hand up from Riki. I see Pamela's question in the chat too, which I'll get to in a second, but Riki, go ahead, please.
Hi, Riki speaking. So I have a few thoughts. I'm going to try and string them together. I I wanted to touch on what Winnie had said about consultations and consultants. I think my friend and I call this moving at the speed of intention. I think so often we want to move at the speed of capitalism and it doesn't work. And moving at the speed of intention is really great. I'm not going to name the organization, but an organization spent an intense amount of money training relaxed performance consultants. 0 of them were autistic. Very few of them were disabled. There was 0 involvement. Well, okay, there was tokenistic involvement from me, the only autistic relaxed performance consultant in the country. It's insulting, it's offensive, it's a lot of things. I disagree slightly with the statement that there aren't consultants and people that can do this work. There are, we just don't know them, but they exist. I should be busy with work, but people don't know I exist. My friends should be busy with work, but people don't know they exist. On the flip side, I have people who are incredible actors and they cannot get a single acting job, but they get consulting jobs busting out of their rears. So it's complicated. I think that we exist, but people don't remember that we exist. I think that also organizations don't talk to each other. I have this problem in every part of my life. So I want to talk about Inside Out Theater a little bit. So how do we learn how to do things like sound, lighting, promotions, other things? Well, here's the first problem. If you're in a wheelchair, how do you get in a sound booth? How do you get something? So here's a couple things that we're doing. If you're in Calgary, there is going to be an accessible, there's a couple accessible options for recording studios. Inside Out Theater and some other people that are disabled consult, including blind and low vision folks and people with power chairs, not just manual chair users like myself, but power chair wheelchair users who cannot transfer independently, consulted with an organization called Vertigo Theater. So they're working on an accessible recording studio. There is a sort of accessible recording studio at the Calgary Public Library. So here's some examples if you're in Calgary. If you're not in Calgary, I don't know all the things, but my pipe dream of all things is that we have an accessible location for everyone in Canada to be able to access grants, to come and train at that location, to learn how to do lighting and sound and design and all these kind of things. And are we there yet? No. But here's a funny thing that happened. Inside Out Theater is located in a rented space. And we're getting bulldozed, which means we need to look for a new location. And when we came up with a new location, one of the things that I brought up to my boss was, well, if we put the sound booth in an accessible location, if we made our own theater, we could train people from across the country because we might be the first accessible sound booth in the entire country. And so these are conversations that we're having. These are not things that are happening yet, but these are the kinds of conversations that are happening. And so these are the kind of community input that I think is really valuable right now. I'll make sure my email goes in. So please email me what kind of things you need as an artist that would, if you went to a theater to train at, if you had the opportunity to go to a theater, like let's pretend money wasn't the issue. Let's pretend we had a grant. What is your access need? Because when we're talking about doing something, because it's still a pipe dream, we have that opportunity to bring in the community and say, well, what is it that you need? And I think that's a really unique place for us. So this is a pipe dream. I'm not going to tell you that it exists or that we're going to be able to fund it, but I'm going to tell you that it's a pipe dream that we can make a community pipe dream. Now, there's some questions in the chat that I wanted to address. Accessible sound booth from home. Someone in my life talked about this a lot. So this is something that I've looked into. Your best bet, in my personal opinion, is to look at grants for work and to phrase it in a way that I am working and I need accessibility from work. Now for Alberta, you can get a grant to help that you need accessibility for workspace. You can get a grant that will help you make your workspace accessible. Or you need something to get you to go to work. So if you're not able to work in a public space and you say, well, what I need is I need my work at home, I would look at phrasing it that way. I would also like this. I just know Alberta. I don't know every other province. I would also look specifically to the Canada Council for the Arts. They have different types of grants and I have to look at them, but there's been some work on making them more accessible to the community and community creation grants. Yeah, I will try to look at this and answer it again in an email or something, because this is something like that's really important to myself. And I think community safety is really important as well. So I think I will look at this again, because I know there's some answers here.
All right, thank you, Riki. Feel free to email me as well, and I would be glad to forward this information to the rest of our community too. We are unfortunately out of time, but before we go, I'm going to quickly get to Susanna's comment and then we'll do final thoughts. Thank you so much.
Yeah, a really quick comment here, just two things. First of all, there is talk between Burnaby Association for Community Inclusion and Theatre Terrific about literally building a theatre with all of those things that you're talking about. That needs to happen because it doesn't exist, and big priority. So I want to thank you for bringing that up. The other thing I want to just say really, really quickly, for film and for theater, you know, a part of the process of accessing that, like, you know, when you talk about audition, what is that? I just want you to know that in our process, an audition is so different than anything else, like any other theater company, or, you know, the way that we do that, and that it welcomes that. I just want to give you a really quick thing. We start everything with a very ceremonial circle where, first of all, you respect yourself and honor yourself for being there, for even coming in the door, however that occurred, and that you take the time to honor everyone that is there with you. And that might sound really simple, but every time it's so vital. Everyone's breath becomes more settled. Everyone feels they have a place and a right to be there for what, you know, whatever their circumstance is. I want you to, I guess I'm just going to really say that it's the process of even entering into film or into theater that is really, really vital, and that has to be looked at. We at Theatre Terrific, I've had the honor of really, you know, creating some processes that really facilitate that. Have, you know, all kinds of people come in, they say, wow, I felt I was here, and I was recognized, and I was heard, and I was seen. And it might sound simple, but those are the things, the initial steps into, they need to be looked at and really formulated in a way that, okay, you can come in here and you have a place. And it sounds simplistic, but I'll leave it there. Thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you so much, Susanna. Thank you everyone for coming, and for all of our wonderful panelists for sharing a lot of their resources and thoughts on this topic. It was a really awesome discussion. As I said in the chat, I will be sending a follow-up email with all the resources discussed in this presentation in the coming days. If you are looking to speak with a specific panelist directly, please reply to my email and I can check and see if I can provide their direct contact information to you. I'm sure all of them would be interested in talking to you directly as well. As far as the resources as well, they are going to be available on our website too, in the coming days in the resources section of the Connector website. So thank you again for coming. It was a really awesome discussion. Please watch the recording on our YouTube channel whenever you please. Thank you again. Bye, everyone.
Laura speaking. Bye. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.